Word games can be really divisive. Sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't like them. A lot of people just hate them altogether because, you know, they don't like words. I like words. I use them a lot. I talk using words. I write using words. So, you know, generally, I'm on good terms with words. Hi, I'm Jordan. This is Jordan Plays Blue with a Kickstarter preview of Kiitos by Matthew Threadgold. This is a word game. We're going to be spelling words out on the table as a group, but it is a competitive game. So the players are going to be adding letters, letter by letter, to try to achieve a word, but the person that finishes the word gets the points. So let's see what's in the box, see how to play, and I'll give you a little bit at the end about what I think. Kiitos comes in a small box. We have the blue letter cards. They have the letters in the middle of the card and in the corners for when you're holding them in your hand. Challenge cards are red, and those are used if your opponent doesn't believe that you are using a correct word. We have the different rules for the round. These are double-sided for additional variants, and then seasoning cards can be added as well for other variants. For the base game of Kiitos, setup is very simple. You flip over these three cards on the green side. This is showing that letters can be added at the end of the words. Words must be at least 4 letters long, and each point that you receive each card you receive is worth 1 point. Each player is dealt a starting hand of 8 cards, and then you start playing. To start a round of Kiitos, the starting player is going to choose a card from their hand, and they're going to announce a word that starts with that letter. So for instance, I'm going to put this S down and I say the word star. I know that I also have the T, the A, and the R, so I have the opportunity to add letters to that word if my opponent can build off of that word as well. So on my opponent's turn, if this is their hand of cards, they must play the next letter in the word. So if it was star, they must play a T. Now, they don't have a T. So what they would do instead is play a different letter that's going to change the word. So let's say they put the N and say snore. So S-N, snore. Now it goes back to the next player. Looking at their hand, they don't have an O, so but they have an A, they have a Y. These are kind of the options here. I don't know if a T and an R or D would be helpful here. So let's put the A here, and let's say instead of snore, they're going to go with snare. Okay, S-N-A-R-E, I believe is how you spelled snare. All right, it comes back to the opponent. Since they have an R, they must play the R. They don't have another option. Okay, and then it goes back to the other player, and they realize when they said snare that they didn't have the E, which is super unhelpful here. So they have a couple options. They either put another letter down that is going to allow them to change the word, or they're going to have to give up. And let's say looking at these, I'm not aware of any other words. I think snarl, I don't think that would work. That would be an L, I don't have that. Yeah, so they would give up. They'd, put their hand down and they would take these, and these would go in front of them as negative points for each of these. That would go in their negative pile. If they were to finish the word snare, they would take those and put them in their positive pile, giving them 1 point each. If it's in your negative pile, you get negative 1 point each. Now let's say I'm feeling a little, sneaky here, and I decide to throw out a word that might be a word or not. And I'm going to say snarl. And I say that. My opponent thinks, they're looking at theirs, like, I don't know how to spell snarl. I don't think that's a word. They're looking at their letters and they decide, no, I'm going to challenge that. So they're going to pull a challenge card. You have to look it up just like you would in Scrabble if you're challenging a word. You're going to find, not a word. All right, so then your opponent has to pick up that A card and either put out a new card or give up and take all the cards. But since they lost the challenge, they must put the challenge card into their negative pile. So that counts as a negative point. Then the next round, everybody draws up to 8 cards, and you start with a new word, going back and forth until the deck is over. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Now you can also play Kiitos in another way, where you're going to be flipping these cards and adjusting the rules as the game goes on. So let's say somebody finishes the word snare. They're going to clear it and take those letters, and those are going to count as positive points in their positive point pile. Once they do that, they can choose one of these rules and change the side. So let's say I'm going to flip over this Kiitos, and we're going to change it to Super Kiitos. I'm going to put the marker on there, and now it says add letters to the either end of the word. So I can then, for future words, add a new letter to the front, or to the back, or to the front of a word, which is super interesting. Also, this one allows you to have a minimum of 5 letters, and then this one gives your positive point pile 2 points each instead of 1 point. You put this token on it because that means the next person to finish a word would flip another card and move this token onto it. You can't flip the same card more than once. So if they flip this one, make it times 2, I can move that over there. Now this one is available to flip. The card with the marker is not allowed to flip. Additional rules of Kiitos include these seasoning cards. So the rules recommend that you use maybe 1 at a time. You could add all 4 if you wanted to. Really spice it up, but it's recommended that you might use 1 at a time. So these are just some additional rules that allow you to spice things up from game to game. All right, that's a little bit about Kiitos. If you don't like word games, this might not be the game for you. I do enjoy word games. I grew up playing a lot of Boggle. My wife's family grew up playing a lot of Scrabble. And, you know, I enjoy the puzzle that is trying to finish words, spell words, get them to be put together properly. I think Kiitos does that really well. It is an interesting twist on having to spell words kind of collaboratively, but still only scoring if you're the one that finishes the word. I especially like the variant where you can add to the beginning or end of words. I think that adds a lot of opportunities, especially at the beginning of words, to maybe add prefixes to words, things like that. I think that works really well. You have the most control in this game at a lower player count. So out of the box, it plays 2 to 4 players. I like it best at 2 players because I think you have the most control back and forth. I know that if I have the second or the first, third, and 5th letter of a word, that if my opponent has the correct letters, I know I'm home free for that word. But there's a lot of jockeying back and forth. Whenever you're picking your words, you need to make sure that you have maybe the even numbered words or every 3 numbered words. With 4 players, it just gets really kind of, you know, you just have less control over that, and I just prefer it at a lower player count. So if this feels like, if you're interested in word games, you're cool with games where you have to spell things, that's not for everybody. But if you're cool with that, I think Kiitos is really a great game. I think it fits really well, especially with non-gamers who are familiar with those more traditional word spelling games. I think this one would fit in really well. It feels sort of like a Scrabble the card game. So yeah, that is Kiitos. I'm Jordan with Jordan Plays Blue. Thanks. If you like Jordan Plays Blue, you should follow me on Instagram. I do quickly reviews at least 3 times a week. I do some unboxing videos and just general board game living. Also on my YouTube channel here. If you want to subscribe and like my videos, that's helpful as well. Thanks.